Welcome to Talking Beat, the podcast for the Portland Police Bureau. We're focusing on thoughtful conversations that we hope will inform and provide you with a small glimpse of work performed by Portland police officers, as well as issues affecting public safety in our city. Here's what's on today's show.
You know, it's a very difficult time here in Portland, but it's an amazing time too, because we're seeing what everybody is capable of doing. We're seeing companies that are switching what they used to manufacture to help manufacture, what is needed right now. We're seeing communities reach out across the board. People are helping their neighbors. Kids are being taught by neighborhoods, and that kind of thing. So while this is very difficult, I think it's also highlighting the best of people.
On this special episode, Lieutenant Tina Jones talks to various Bureau members, as well as the Sunshine Division, regarding how COVID-19 has impacted their work. We also hear updates from Chief Jami Resch. Thanks for listening.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Tina Jones, a public information officer with the Portland Police Bureau. The way that we're going to run the show today is I'm going to moderate a conversation with several people with different perspectives about the Portland Police Bureau's response currently during this pandemic. And at the end, we'll have the Chief of Police, Jami Resch, joining us. Our first guest today is Officer Matt Jacobson, and he works with our Central Neighborhood Response Team. Thank you for being with us, Matt.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So can you tell us just a little overview of your tenure with the Portland Police Bureau and what your assigned role is?
So I've been a police officer 10 years. I've been with the Police Bureau for 5. And for the last 3 years, I've been assigned to the Neighborhood Response Team at Central Precinct. So each precinct has a Neighborhood Response Team. We generally focus on supporting our patrol division through addressing livability and community safety issues. At Central, we primarily do that through short to medium term investigations, so like a week to 3-4 weeks, assisting patrol with calls, proactive police missions to interdict criminal behavior, and then partnering closely with our community stakeholders.
Awesome.
So that's our primary role.
So what has changed for you and your unit during the COVID-19 pandemic?
So, our focus, as I said, prior to COVID was very heavily on the enforcement and on the interdiction of that criminal behavior. We still do that. We just wrapped up a 3-week investigation where we were able to arrest a subject who had exposed himself to some teenage girls in Southwest Portland. But we've also pivoted our focus to work with the business community and really expand upon the relationships we already have. Primarily working with those businesses that are either closed, have limited operations, or otherwise significantly affected. So we've worked with like the Portland Business Alliance or the Central East Side Industrial Council to develop an open line of communication so that if we have information we need to push out to those businesses still operating, we have a new avenue to do that. And also that if they have concerns or are seeing things that they want us to know, they have a way for that to happen as well. So as part of that, we've also worked with the social service partners that are still operating, like New Avenues for Youth or Blanchet House. We've been in regular communication with them to make sure that if they have concerns or if they have things that are changing, the Police Bureau can really do what we need to do to support them so that they continue operating and provide services to the people that really need it during this time.
That's great. So how are you managing that work differently?
On the patrol side, we're meeting people outside. We're taking calls via phone. We're kind of finding new means and new ways to do police work while really supporting that social distancing that we all talk about. I think it's just all about adaptation. From the NERT side, obviously, we're using phone and email more than we did before. But for whatever role we're in, I think we realize it's really important to have uniformed officers out in our community and really projecting the fact that, hey, we're still here doing police work and we're doing what we need to do to make sure the community's safe.
Is there anything related to your work that you think the public should be aware of?
Yeah, there are two big rumors that have popped up. As I said, we have close relationships with our community stakeholders, and we hear a lot that that people don't think that police are responding to calls. I can assure you that the Police Bureau is responding to calls, and we're doing just as many investigations as we did prior to COVID. I think the thing that's different is the criteria for taking people to jail has changed a little bit, but we're still making sure we're taking the steps we need to hold those people accountable as we go along. The second thing is that we're hearing that the Police Bureau is planning a roundup of our unsheltered population. We've actually heard this directly from those people, and I can tell you that is not the case. It's concerning because that kind of rumor would be cause a huge level of anxiety for a population that's already in a really precarious situation. What I will tell you is that we're not doing that. We've actually shifted our focus. We've been handing out some sanitation products. We've made sure we're doing referrals so that our unsheltered population knows where to get a warm meal or a hot meal, a warm shower, or serve those other basic needs so they stay healthy. But part of that is really asking that if our community doesn't need to be out, that they stay inside and realize that we have a segment of our population that just unfortunately doesn't have anywhere to go. And so that we make sure that we help keep them healthy, that we all do our part.
Do you have any tips or ideas for how to manage stress during this crisis?
I'm really lucky. The neighborhood response team is a team of 8 of us, so myself and 7 other officers. So we really rely on each other for support. We do that during normal times. We rely heavily on each other to complete our mission. So I translate that into relying on our family and friends, which is a little different when you're doing it via phone or FaceTime. But really, it's been sticking to a routine and making sure that, at least from the Police Bureau side, that we're communicating with our families. Most of us on my team have kids, some younger kids, and this no doubt causes some pretty good anxiety. Just making sure they know what we're doing to protect ourselves in terms of keeping ourselves healthy, but also make sure that we're messaging the things we're doing to our community to know that we're still here and still doing police work. It just may be a little adapted to the current situation.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time today, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Our next guest is going to be Detective Cheryl Waddell. She works with the fraud team and will provide some information about that. Thank you, Cheryl, for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Can you tell us just a little bit about your tenure with PPB and your assigned role?
I was hired in 1999 and did 5 years patrol primarily at Central Precinct. My area patrol was Northwest neighborhood for Nob Hill in the Alphabet District. In 2004, I promoted to detective and spent 5 years in the sex crimes unit. I was on the Oregon Attorney General's Sexual Assault Task Force, was the lead detective for all cases involving sex offenders, and was part of the Innocent Images online initiative with the FBI. In 2010, I moved over to white-collar crime, and I do all types of financial investigations, but my emphasis is in intellectual property, so counterfeit merchandise with emphasis in health and safety products, and then also bank fraud and wire fraud.
So you have a broad experience, and a lot of the things that you're currently tasked with are connected to what's going on right now. What has changed for you and your unit during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, what's mostly changed is that we are now kind of split in half. Half of the group is telecommuting or teleworking, whatever you want to call it, and the other half is working out of the office. With these types of complex investigations, it lends itself to working as a team. So when you get kind of stuck or you need some suggestion on where to go next in your investigation, we often just turn to each other, or we often tabletop an investigation and go, okay, anybody have any ideas on the best way to investigate this financial crime? And so that's been fragmented because of this.
So you're collaborating just in a little different way, it sounds like.
Correct, yeah.
So how are you managing your work differently?
I'm doing a lot of emails back and forth when before I would just, turn around, talk to people, or I had a lot of meetings with bankers and business community members. Those have all stopped. Some of them are going to some telemeetings like Zoom, and I presume some of them will also just go to conference calls. But that's all that I've been able to do is just a lot of emailing.
Yes. So is there anything related to your work that you think the public should be aware of given the current situation?
Yeah, when this first started, the first thing I thought of was because of my counterfeit merchandise was that I was worried that people would look for counterfeit products online. I was worried that there would be other kind of financial scams. That there's all of the romance scams and all the kind of email problems. I was worried about phishing. So I wanted people to keep that in mind, that all of the other scams that were out there are still out there. Now they just added another layer to it, and now maybe put something to do with the COVID. And so be really wary of any unsolicited emails, unsolicited text. Don't click on them, hover over them, or just don't pay any attention to them. Be wary of something that looks like a subscription that you might have, or might look like it's part of your bank. Only go through your trusted sources, not through what you were texted or emailed. So if you have online banking and you get an email, I would go back into my platform, log on to my account, and then contact the bank through that. And then finally, keep an eye on your accounts. At least check them every 30 days. And if you see anything suspicious, then you can dispute it right away. A lot of people don't realize if you don't dispute it within 30 days, you might become financially responsible. So
it's really important to stay on top of that and pay attention.
Correct.
Yes. So do you have any tips or ideas for folks about managing stress during this crisis?
I personally have turned off the TV. I only watch in the morning for a very small amount of time to get updated. I get updated, of course, from the Portland Police Bureau, at least at noon, and then maybe at nightly news. But other than that, just too much information can be overwhelming, and I would suggest that people just get the basic that you need to, and then kind of go on with your life inside your home. I've taken advantage of this time because I'm working from home and my children are home. And so now I get to spend a lot more time with them, turn off the TV at night, and we play board games, and we've already done 2 puzzles, and I'm just taking this time to spend with them, and because that's what I'm going to remember when this is all done. I'm not going to worry about, I was stuck in the house. No, I'm going to remember the fun that we had, or that we tried to have.
So making the best out of the situation and having some quality time.
Exactly.
Well, we really appreciate you being here. I know that we've posted on social media some of the tips, and where people can report information about possible products and things like that.
Okay.
So thank you.
One thing that I could...
if you had something to add.
I wanted to add that if anyone has any questions about fraud or anything, financial crimes, they can always email our detail, and you can find that White Collar Crimes at portlandoregon.gov. And then one of the detectives will get back to you, and we can help you out. Even if it's not a crime, you just have questions, you can reach us then.
Great. Thank you so much, Cheryl. We appreciate you being here. Our next guest is Sergeant Martin Padilla, and he is with our Special Victims Unit. Thank you, Martin, for taking some time to come spend a few minutes with us today. So can you tell us really quick a little bit about, your background with Portland Police Bureau and what your assigned role is?
I've been with the Police Bureau for 21 years. Most of it was spent in patrol. I had a few detached positions with training and SWORD. I spent some time in NERT and And then a little over 6 years ago, I got promoted to sergeant. Went from North Precinct to Central Precinct, and then I've spent the last 5 years at SVU, formerly known as DVRU. We can get into that if you like.
So what is SVU?
So SVU, the Special Victims Unit, it sort of evolved. Just in the 5 years I've been there, we've had some changes. We've had reductions like most everybody else. So initially we were DVRU, the Domestic Violence Reduction Unit. We had the Gun Dispossession Program. We had the Elder Crimes and Vulnerable Adults Units. And we had 4 detectives and several officers assigned. We've had some reductions. We don't have as many detectives or officers, so we've had to cross-train a lot of folks. We've also had the addition of having to investigate more types of major crimes than we used to, and we're also an on-call unit, too. So if there's a major crime, we respond 24/7. With the reduction in our personnel and with the need to cross-train, I started looking. It's a mouthful to have all those acronyms. I looked around at other agencies, and SVU, while it's very television sounding, actually is a real acronym, and what we do is very similar to what other agencies do that have an SVU. So beginning January 1st, we changed our name to that as it more appropriately reflects what our work is.
Thank you. That's helpful to know because your unit is helping the most vulnerable populations out there. And so that's especially important for what we're talking about today. What has changed for you and your unit related to the COVID-19 pandemic?
So some parts of it haven't changed. Now, that's the part I think there was some misunderstanding about. So major crimes, if they're committed, usually for us, it's most of our major crimes are domestic violence related. We still respond. We still send our up team out, and we still go make arrests, and we'll interview those folks. Is using the safe protocols that we can, but we're still going to be out there for that. Where it's changed, I would say, is on the cold investigation side, where it's not an immediate. Obviously, a lot more telephone interviews. It's really changed on the elder crime side. We don't go into care facilities if at all possible. We do a lot of coordination with Adult Protective Services and try to interview or gain evidence or figure out what's going on without actually going to the facilities if we can.
So you guys are trying to limit exposure both to our folks and the members of a particular community, it sounds like.
Correct.
That's great. So given all that, how are you managing your work differently?
So when possible, when we would used to go out and interview people, if we don't have to interview them in person, we don't. I would say, as most investigators know, you do glean more when you're in person, but we're managing it by telephone interviews. If we can collect evidence, we don't have people come into the office anymore. This morning we've had a couple evidence collections where we meet them out in the driveway, those types of things. So whenever possible, when it's reasonable, we'll do that.
And I think we didn't touch on advocates.
Right.
So let's touch on that as well. How are they doing their work differently? Because we do have advocates that are co-housed with your unit, correct?
Yes, we do. So they are not coming into the office. The coordinator comes in part-time to consult with me and the other sergeant about cases, but they do not come in. However, they do still respond to the calls telephonically. In some limited cases, they might come out to address needs, but it's typically at a distance. But they are still available to all the officers and the domestic violence survivors during the hours that they had before. And I think that some got lost early on, but we've been trying to get that message out.
Great. So we've reminded our police officers that they're a resource. They just won't be coming out to the scene, but they can still talk to the survivors by phone and help them get connected to resources as well.
Right. And if I can add one other thing,
Absolutely.
I think there was a misunderstanding too. So we're co-located with the Gateway Center, which has more or less closed its doors for now. But that was a great resource for all sorts of things. But the biggest one that most people know is you could do the ex parte or restraining order hearings there via video. And so they're not doing that there, but they are still doing them at the courthouse. And that message was misunderstood at first. That has never closed. Those restraining orders are still getting issued, and they're still being served.
That's really good to know, and we'll make sure that we connect so that we can help amplify that message out there, because restraining orders can be an important tool. And we discussed some numbers a couple weeks ago. The chief will get into it a little bit more today about what we're seeing. We have not seen a reduction in domestic violence cases, unfortunately, but it sounds like you guys are doing everything you can to continue those investigations, and with the advocates reach out. Anything you wanted to add on that?
Just that while a lot of the typical DV advocacy resources that are out there may not be able to respond as broadly as they once did, they're still out there. And I think we put on our Twitter about a week ago that, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is still up and running. The Call to Safety, formerly known as the Portland Women's Crisis Line, they're still up. Aging and Disability Services, their 24-hour line is still up. And Child Abuse Hotline, Multnomah County Crisis Line, they're still all up. And so much like the county courthouse is up, please contact those if you need them.
So, and we'll continue to put those important numbers out there. Do you have any tips at the end of this to share with the public about, how your folks or you're managing stress during this critical time?
I can't speak for, how everybody else is doing it. I would say it's very similar to what Detective Waddell said, and I think it actually goes for every day, not just in COVID-19. Don't inundate yourself with the news. I mean, be aware, but the more you watch it, the more negative you're going to think. Just think of creative ways. For myself, I still have to come to work every day because of the type of crimes we investigate. But my family my wife and two daughters are spending a lot of time, social distancing and staying in the home. But they also, they'll go for a walk in the neighborhood because you can easily socially distance that way. So,
well, thank you. We really appreciate it. And, you guys are doing really important work with our vulnerable communities. So have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to have Sergeant Davis Kyle. He's with our child abuse team, and he'll help us understand the latest on that. Welcome. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
So we want a little perspective from the child abuse team. Can you tell us a little bit about your tenure with PPB and your current assignment?
Absolutely. I've been an officer with Portland for about 19 years. I'm currently assigned to the Family Services Division, and I supervise our child abuse team.
And how many detectives do you have in that unit?
Right now we have 10 total detectives and 1 officer assigned with us.
Awesome. So what has changed for you and your unit during this COVID-19 pandemic?
That's a good question. We've actually, COVID has affected us quite a bit. We really, unlike other investigative units, we really depend on our community partners for help, specifically the Child Abuse Hotline. That's where most of our referrals come from. Typically, those get called in by teachers, child care workers, counselors. That's how we're aware of most of the child abuse that takes place. Unfortunately, as we've heard from our partners at DHS, their call load has decreased significantly, and we are definitely seeing that. Just to put in some context, those numbers, pre-March 19th, we would see an average of 40 to 50 reports a day that was reported to the child abuse that relates to the city of Portland. After March 19th, we're averaging about 10. That's a pretty significant decrease, and we are aware of that.
So I just want to clarify that. You're saying, unfortunately, you guys are getting less. That doesn't necessarily mean that crimes are down. All of a sudden, child abuse went away, correct?
That's correct. I myself and my unit, we believe that the child abuse is still taking place. Unfortunately, the victims of these crimes are not ones to report the crimes themselves. That's why we depend on community members to see what's going on and make those reports, and that's how we get made aware of that.
So just to further touch on that, you guys would usually see an increase in reporting maybe after a holiday or after school starts again.
That's correct.
And so can we anticipate that potentially when life maybe resorts to a new normal after some of this that you guys might have an increase?
Absolutely.
Reported?
I know that, I'm with the assistance of our other leadership in our unit and the police bureau, we are anticipating, unfortunately, a surge of these types of cases being reported, and we are preparing for that in our unit. Some of the things that we're doing is, most importantly, is making sure our detectives are healthy so that we're able and mentally ready for these cases. So we take wellness very seriously. We want to make sure that our detectives and their families are healthy and well, so we can work these cases. Specifically, some of the things that we're doing is we're staggering our work schedules, so not everyone's in the building at the same time, just to hope to reduce any kind of contamination. But additionally, we're closing out old cases. We're getting all of our reports written up. We want to make sure that we have a clean slate, when things resume and we get back to normal.
So it sounds like you guys are managing your work differently to get caught up and get ready for what might be a surge.
Absolutely.
So related to that, is there anything related to your work that you think the public should be aware of? Can people still report child abuse? How do they do that?
Yes, you can absolutely still call the child abuse hotline and make reports. With the increased online presence of our kids from doing e-learning and finishing school at home, our kids are going to be online a lot more. And as our partners at the FBI have mentioned, this inadvertently could pose some risk to our children. So what we're asking is for parents or guardians, please monitor your kids' activity, be aware of that. And if you notice anything suspicious, please notify the cyber tip line, and you can report that, as well as calling the child abuse hotline.
That's a really good point, because with everything going electronic or, on the internet, more and more people are on there. So unfortunately, that would be a ripe opportunity for someone to take advantage of kids. So.
Absolutely. And I do want the public to know that we do have 2 detectives assigned specifically to those internet crimes. So we are also prepared for those reports to come in.
That's good to know. So, and just to wrap up, do you have any tips to share about how managing stress during this time of crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. I know some games that I play with my kids with the increased online presence is just play the what if game. Just role play with your kids and ask, what if a stranger tried to talk to you on the internet? How would you respond? Get your kids prepared for this when this happens, and make sure that they feel confident to let you know that they've been approached by a stranger online. There's a couple websites that are available that have great resources for parents to go to. Specifically, it's called missingkids.org. And there's great resources for kids and parents of all ages. And if you have the time, go through that resource together with your kids. There's videos, there's games. It's a great place to go for resources.
That's a really good idea. Well, thank you. We really appreciate your time today. And, we appreciate those really difficult investigations that your team does.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So next, we're going to have an opportunity to talk to Lieutenant Casey Hetman. He is the lieutenant with our behavioral health unit. Hi, Casey. Thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about your tenure and your current assigned role with the Portland Police Bureau?
Sure, yeah. My name is Casey Hetman. I'm currently the lieutenant that oversees the behavioral health unit here at the Portland Police Bureau. I've been with the Bureau for over 13 years and spent the majority of my time on patrol in that capacity, but in the last 3 years I've been in the behavioral health unit, and for the last year and a half I've been serving as the lieutenant overseeing it.
And just quickly, if you could define what the behavioral health unit is or what type of work happens there.
Sure. So our mission is really to coordinate the response of law enforcement with the wider behavioral health systems that our community operates within. So to that end, we have 5 co-responder teams that are comprised of a police officer partnered with a full-time mental health clinician. And we receive referrals from patrol and other sources here in the Police Bureau to reach out and work with individuals within our community that are needing a little bit more assistance due to mental health concerns.
So that's unique, a very unique unit that you have. And so I imagine that there are some unique things that have been happening during this pandemic. What has changed for you and your unit during the COVID-19 crisis?
Sure. Yeah. So to make sure that we're first and foremost keeping all of our employees safe so we can best serve the wider public and the community. We've scaled back our in-person staffing within the unit, so non-sworn professional staff are all working remotely, as are our full-time clinicians are working in a remote capacity as well. And we've also been mindful to make sure that we're not having too many officers in the office at any one given time as well. So we have scaled that back as well to where we're rotating officers who are physically in the office and others that are working remotely, just to be mindful of that.
So can you give some examples of how you're managing your work and then how your team's managing their work differently?
Sure.
Given the situation.
Yeah. So technology is our friend. It's become a staple in how we're keeping in contact and navigating these challenging times for sure. It's a lot of more frequent phone contacts between obviously the patrol officers and their clinician partners, and our weekly and biweekly meetings that we're using to coordinate amongst ourselves, but then also our invaluable community partners and stakeholders. Those have moved into like a more of a online space. So we're using telecommuting applications and phone calls to make sure that those critical connections are still happening.
And can you provide an example? I know the other day you were telling me about an example of connecting with the community differently.
Sure.
Like how one of your team members might be doing so.
Yeah, so we have clients that come from all walks of life, obviously, and have different barriers and struggles in terms of their mental health. And some of our clients need maybe a higher level of contact on a more frequent basis. And I know for some of our individuals that have really thrived on having in-person contacts with our teams have had to think somewhat outside the box to make sure that's still happening and we're taking care of our people. And so we've had some officers that have actually driven to individuals' residences and called them on the phone, but have remained either on the sidewalk or from their vehicle so that the person inside can still see them, but they can have that visual connection while they're still kind of distant, at least having that phone conversation. So we're trying to
really
think of new
unique
ways to do things.
That's awesome. So is there anything related to your work that you think the public should be aware of during this time?
Sure. Yeah. So we are still taking referrals and we're still doing our work in the BHU. We understand that mental health is a big concern at this time where people are experiencing new feelings and having some challenges as navigating these uncharted territories. And so with that, we are still staffed up. We're doing the same work we've been doing. But I also want to point out that there are some really valuable resources in the community that people can still lean on and reach out to if they need. Cascadia has a 7-day-a-week, 12-hour a day from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. an urgent walk-in clinic at Southeast 42nd and Division. So folks that are either themselves or have a loved one that's having a mental health concern or a crisis, they can utilize services there. The county crisis line is also available, 503-988-4888. And then also the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. And those are great resources as well.
We really appreciate your time today and the important work that your team is doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have an opportunity to talk to our records manager, Jen Hollinsworth-Reed. And a little fun fact about her, it's actually her second anniversary with the Police Bureau. So welcome, Jen.
Hi.
So can you tell us a little bit about your tenure with the Portland Police Bureau and your assigned role?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, today is my 2-year anniversary with PPB, which is really exciting. I am the manager of the Records Division, and I like to think of the Records Division as the memory of the Bureau. So we process all the police reports that our officers are writing. We're working with national law enforcement databases, and we also provide copies of police reports to members of the public.
So this is a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that keeps us running that a lot of people don't really know or think about. It's not the stuff always covered in TV shows about
Absolutely.
policing. So what has changed for your unit during this COVID-19 pandemic?
You know, we, like everybody else, are focusing on flattening the curve. So that means that about half of our staff are in the office on any given day, and the other half are actually staying at home like much of the public is. And so, you know, because of that, we are a little bit slower with some of the non-essential tasks. But one thing that I think is important to highlight that hasn't changed is our dedication to public service. So like you mentioned, we are here supporting the mission of our officers to provide public safety services to the public. And so that That applies to all of the professional staff in the Bureau. So records is still making sure that missing persons get entered into databases. Our business services group is still making sure that our employees are getting paid so they can continue to contribute to the local economy. And they're also making sure that we're getting supplies we need. Our property and evidence division is working to get property that was stolen back to its rightful owners. And then our janitors are keeping everything really clean in our facilities so that we all stay healthy.
So how are you and your team working differently?
So like I mentioned, about half of our folks are actually in the office. About half of the ones who are at home are able to telework now. So that's a really great advantage that is helping us try to keep up with our work. We're focusing on the most essential functions of our work. So there are some things that are being triaged. When we are focusing on things, like I said, we're making sure that missing persons get entered into databases. We're working with the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office to make sure that defendants are still getting a fair and speedy trial. We're making sure that police reports involving child abuse are getting sent over to Oregon DHS so that those can be adequately investigated.
So a lot of really critical functions for things that do have to go over, like if someone's arrested, those reports have to be timely. So
yeah, absolutely.
So is there anything related to your work that you think the public should be aware of?
I think the thing that we most want the public to know is that we're trying our hardest and we ask for their patience. Like everybody else, we're trying to figure out how to adapt to this ongoing situation. One of the things that I think is really important that people are aware of is there's some things that they can do to actually get faster service from the police bureau. So a lot of people don't know that the quickest way to get a police report taken is actually to go online and submit a police report themselves. So people can do that at portlandoregon.gov/police. And you can submit a police report for a hit and run if there's no injury. You can also submit a police report if you are the victim of identity theft, or if, say, your car was broken into and property was stolen. And as soon as we process that report, you'll get a copy, which is really handy because then you can give it to your insurance company if you need it for a claim. Another thing you can do at portlandoregon.gov/police is you can also request a copy of a police report that was taken by an officer.
Awesome. Well, thanks for those tips. That's all the time we have for now, but we appreciate getting the records perspective.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. And happy 2nd year anniversary with the Police Bureau.
Thank you.
So next we're going to have Captain Craig Dobson. He was the first person who led our incident management team, and he's also currently the captain at the training division. So we'll get his perspective here. Welcome, Captain Dobson.
Good afternoon.
Can you tell us a little bit about your tenure with PPB and what your current assigned role is?
Sure. I'm rolling into my 21st year, actually into my 22nd year of police work. I've had a variety of roles, and currently I'm the captain of the training division, as well as the coordinator for our IMT, or our incident management teams, as well as our incident commanders.
So we'll kind of get a couple quick perspectives about what has changed for you and those two teams during this COVID-19 pandemic.
Sure. One of the things that we're doing right now is we have 2 teams that we're rotating every 14 days. The teams are basically managing the incident. Their focus is on taking all the information in that comes in on a daily basis and providing information out to our officers of what they need to know, managing all of the supplies and the equipment that our officers need, as well as tracking the finance piece of it. And the final piece that we're focused on is the absenteeism. So if our officers start to get sick, we've got some triggers or
contingencies,
so that we can put other officers out onto the street to ensure that the street stays safe.
Awesome. And then for training, some things have changed out there as well.
Yes. Normally we do all of our training face-to-face, and that can't happen right now. So my team, I've got a great team, and they have worked at retooling entirely how they do training. And so right now we have 21 people who are trying to become officers who are down at the Basic Academy. Basic Academy is closed right now. And so we're teaching them remotely right now to get them up to speed with the Advanced Academy type stuff. And then also we've got new hires that we have just hired on who can't go to the academy because it's closed. And we have farmed them out to help with the Sunshine Division at this point in time.
So they're getting unique experience and training just in a little different capacity right now until things maybe reset.
Yes.
Is there anything related to your work that you think the public should be aware of?
I think the most important thing is we're all in this together. We all have a role in making it through this period of time. And I think it's important that the public knows that they can do as much as we can to help others, reaching out and checking on their neighbors, checking on their family members, particularly those that are elderly or that are isolated, to ensure that they're doing okay and that they're safe, that they have the supplies that they need so that they can live comfortably through this period of time.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time today, and you've got two different hats that you're wearing, so keep up the great work.
Thanks.
Thank you. So next, we're going to shift gears a little bit. I've got a guest from the Sunshine Division here, Kyle Camberg, and he's going to give us a little perspective about Sunshine Division. Hi, Kyle.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
This is Kyle Camberg with the Sunshine Division. So, Kyle, for those who may not be familiar, what is the Sunshine Division and how is it connected to the Portland Police Bureau?
So it was actually founded and started by the Portland Police Bureau in the early 1920s. Approximately 1923 is sort of the origin story of a few different ways police officers started getting food and clothing out to the community in need. In Goose Hollow, not a couple blocks from here, Christmas Eve in 1923 was one of the starts of that. In the 1960s, Sunshine Division was incorporated as a 501c3, and now we fast forward 60 or so years later, and we have a small civilian staff. I'm the executive director. We have a team of about 15 staff members. We have 2 physical buildings here in town. One is over by the Moda Center. One is over by David Douglas High School that community members can come and access food at. And we still uniquely work with the Portland Police Bureau, just like we did almost 100 years ago, where Sunshine Division food boxes are in all the precincts. In fact, when I came in today, some were being dropped off because it's been quite busy. We have a program called our Izzy's Kids program, which is sort of better known as Shop with a Cop, where about 500 kids a year go school clothes shopping with the Portland police officer. So we fundraise that, and we pair a volunteer police officer with a low-income child. And then just like back in 1923, but slightly different, we still do a huge holiday food box distribution, and 2 Portland police precincts are a part of that. And nearly 4,000 families got a hearty holiday meal, and the Police Bureau is a major logistics supporter of that because that is quite an undertaking for a small nonprofit. So we still do a lot together, but we are a charity, and so we work in concert to help people.
Awesome. So given the current need and the current state of the world, what has changed for Sunshine Division in recent weeks?
Yeah, I have to almost exhale before I start that. It has been unlike anything I've seen before. I'm coming up this summer on my 9th year as the executive director. It is busier than we have ever seen. It's not even close. I started at the end of the recession, and it is more than 4 times busier than we would normally see in terms of the amount of people that are coming to us directly for food. The other part that is, it's not surprising, but it is startling, is how many people are reaching out both to us at Sunshine Division and also to you through the non-emergency line to access those food boxes that we have in the precincts and the contact offices. And I know from talking to the chief that those numbers were up about 8 times over what you normally see. And so a lot of people don't know that, but for decades, I mean, I've seen footage from the 1950s. Police officers have had food baskets or food boxes today that they can take out to families and individuals in crisis when they're on a call. Well, now we have this new crisis of there's literally thousands of people who can't or should not or are fearful of leaving their home because of the crisis. Also, there's huge populations of people who have recently become unemployed, and they didn't see that coming. And so the volume of calls we're getting from people who can't leave their home, it is staggering, and frankly, it's scary. And that's one of the things we've been working on for about the past 2 weeks is how are we going to respond to that?
And how are people reaching out for help?
You know, they're calling us and they're emailing us. If you go to our website, sunshinedivision.org, on our contact page, we've got essentially it's a get help button, and that's an email, and those actually come directly to my inbox. And so I see those every day. A month ago, that would have been a couple a day, maybe. Now it's, 5, 6, 7 an hour. Just while I was waiting to come in the interview today, I think I had 5 or 6. I would say on an average, I'm getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 a day with people with questions. And it's people from all walks of life. It's not just sort of people who had normally needed a little bit of help. It's people who recently lost their job. It's caretakers. It's people my age who maybe have parents that are in the 70s and older that are worried about how, not allowing them to get out of the house because they shouldn't leave for fear of the virus. It's other nonprofits that work with medically fragile people and work with senior citizens. So we're getting hit from all sorts of walks of life, from people saying, can you help us? Can you help us get food to people who can't leave their home?
And how do they access food?
So anyone that can come to our two facilities, we've changed our entire model. It used to be a food pantry, a room about the size of the one we're in here, where people went and shopped. About a month ago, we had to suspend our volunteer activities, and we had to essentially close the building because we kind of got ahead of this and saw this coming. So we've changed just specifically to emergency food boxes. And what we're doing is we're serving those outside of our building, essentially with a barrier between our staff and between the clients that come to us. And so it's a safe environment. It's open air. Neither the people accessing nor our staff have to get within about 15 feet of each other. And so people can pick up a box. It's no questions asked. It's it's one box a week per household. So if someone comes up, there's no paperwork, there's no filling. This is not the DMV. It's, do you need some food? Great. Here it is. And off you go. And so it's a very safe, simple, easy environment for people. For anyone who cannot access, we have the precinct boxes, and that's kind of one of the things we're going to talk about today is the expansion of that.
Yeah, and we'll come back to that, but people are still able to call the non-emergency line.
Correct.
And an officer can bring one out, and then we'll talk about some other options here in a minute. So how is the community support for Sunshine Division right now?
It's unprecedented times. One, a lot of groups that our supporters have really stepped up financially, which is amazing. But we have these other two challenges that we talked about. One is we're a small nonprofit, so we rely heavily on volunteers, and we've had essentially to turn our volunteers away. And that makes life hard for us, whether it's sorting food or working with the clients or distributing food. We have dozens of volunteers in our buildings every day, and we don't have that anymore. The other part that's really challenging is almost all of the food we distribute is donated. Very little of it is actually purchased. But many of the ways food is donated no longer exist anymore. We can't put our food barrels into offices and churches and schools, and so we're really asking the public to help support that financially, because we're going to have to go out and buy food for the short term now, because all those normal streams of food donations just aren't appropriate anymore.
And if people want to help out, all that information is on your website. It sounds like a couple of local community businesses have stepped up in a big way.
There's been a number of groups that have really stepped up. About a week ago, Advantage Credit Union helped us host a telethon that raised over $60,000 on KTU, which was amazing. And as we're going to talk about it in a minute, the Fred Meyer Foundation and Safeway Albertsons Foundation have made tremendous gifts to allow us to expand our offerings as well. So people are stepping up. They know the work we do is critical. And that's the best. I get that question a lot, is how can I help? Normally, I would ask people if they'd like to volunteer or host a food drive or give financially. Unfortunately, the first two aren't an option right now. So giving financially allows us to do all of these things.
So I think we've teased this enough. Yeah. We've got some big news that you wanted to share about a new opportunity. It sounds like you guys are being very innovative and trying to, address the situation as it's changed, and you've got some exciting news that you want to share.
Yeah, I'm extremely proud and excited of the collaboration, and really it's a collaboration between a lot of people, with Sunshine Division kind of in the middle of it. But modeling after how we have the home delivery of boxes from the precincts, what we were seeing is just there's so many people that we needed to do an expansion of that home delivery model. And so in working with the Bureau, as was mentioned right before me, there's a number of new hires and other people whose jobs are sort of changing or in limbo a little bit. We've been able to work with you to get more officers to support the home delivery. We're working with H2C Productions to do the logistics in a third warehouse that's offsite, so we're not mixing a new program with our existing staff for fear of people being ill. And then Fred Meyer, Zero Hunger, Zero Waste, and Safeway Albertsons Foundation have put in very large gifts to allow us to get this off the ground. So I'm proud to announce that effective Monday, we are going to start home delivering 1,000 food boxes per week for a minimum of the next 10 weeks, with the help of all those groups, and being home delivered primarily by the Portland Police Bureau officers. And so it's an amazing collaboration. Basically, that's about 27,000 meals because a box contains multiple meals. So about 27,000 meals a week that are going to go out. And like I said, about 10 weeks from now, we will have home delivered to 10,000 households. And so if anyone goes to our website, we now have a pop-up that says, would you like to get a home delivery? If you're in Portland or Gresham, you go in and you fill out, basically it's a Google form so that we know where to deliver it. No one is going to come in your house. They're going to knock on the door. They're going to drop the box off. And it's no questions asked. It's turnkey, it's free, and it's for anyone who can't or should not leave their home right now because of the virus. And so we want to be responsive to that because this is a crisis we've never seen before.
Well, that's really exciting. And I know we have a press release that'll be going out with some more details here shortly to highlight that for our media folks. But 1,000 boxes. Did you say a day?
It'll be a week. So Monday through Friday, 200 a day. Yeah, we've turned into kind of.
My mind is blown here.
It's kind of Uber Eats, if you will, from the nonprofit side.
For the critical time, yeah.
We want people to sign up for this. We want them to know that this is a resource. It's much needed for anyone, whatever that reason, whether it's financial, whether it's illness, whether because you're a caretaker. I mean, one of the stories I shared with you, I had a single parent tell me, they're medically fragile and they're terrified to go out because what if they get sick? Who's going to take care of their children? And I get all sorts of emails like that. I get all sorts of calls like that, and it's heartbreaking. And
we can help take care of that by signing up. So we'll get that information out. We really appreciate your time today, and thanks for always being a good partner with us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So next, we're going to have some time with Chief Resch and get the latest from her perspective. Hi, Chief. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we, had a whole host of perspectives that we talked about today, and we're just wanting to kind of share what the latest is on the Portland Police Bureau's staffing situation now that we're about a month into the COVID-19 situation here.
Right. So I know that's been a question a lot of people have asked, and I get asked that a lot in various meetings, how we're doing as far as staffing is concerned. Our incident management team closely monitors our staffing levels every day, so we're very on top of it. I'm happy to report that right now we are holding steady with our sick leave usage. It's not going up. It's kind of average for what we would normally see this time of year, which is very good news. We are aware that some Bureau members have been tested for COVID-19. However, we are unaware of any Bureau member who has tested positive. Like I said, our emergency management team continues to monitor this every day. We do have some contingencies. So if we do have folks who start to become ill or need to be quarantined for a reason or another, we are preparing for that. I'd also like to highlight that we still are responding to all calls for service, but again, it may be in a different fashion. It may either be by phone, we may ask you to report it online, we may ask you to step outside to talk to an officer, and just to also kind of reiterate, I know we've sent out some stuff in the media previously about officers who may be wearing differing types of respirators or different types of masks when they show up. So just so the public is aware that the officers may look a little bit different when they do show up in person, but we are still responding to calls for service.
So we talked with the media a couple weeks ago, and I was just wondering what changes have been implemented in the last 2 weeks. It seems like things are changing at lightning speed these days.
Yes, it seems like every day we're trying to make a little bit of an adaptation to figure out how we can provide better services, not only to the community, but from the chief's office down to the officer level as far as how we are able to communicate. I know in one of the earlier press releases we put out that we had suspended roll calls, and that was very difficult on our officers, our sergeants, anybody that's working in operations, because it's a critical form of communication that we use. And it's a way that I am able to convey things down to the street, decisions that I'm making, and reasons for those decisions. And when that line is cut, it can cause a lot of confusion and frustration. So we've been able to recently come up with different forms of video conferencing so that the officers and the sergeants and the captains and commanders, everybody can actually hold like a virtual roll call. I've been able to participate in 2 of those in the last 2 days. They've actually been very helpful. Gotten a couple questions from officers that I was able to answer right away. But it's definitely kind of brought back that communication. People, I think, felt a little isolated when they weren't able to do that. We've been using that video conferencing, different platforms and stuff for many meetings throughout the Bureau for the last week or so, and it's been really helpful to kind of keep us on track. I know that I think the New hires have been mentioned a couple times. In fact, so we did hire a few people last week, and we've been able to use them in various forms, one with the Sunshine Division. We have some folks that are helping with records. We also have some folks helping in our Forensics Evidence Division. Our Advanced Academy, in addition to, I guess I kind of spoke a little bit out of order, our Advanced Academy is also being taught online right now, thanks to different video conferencing platforms. So that's been helpful. So our folks that are in the Academy are not behind, and hopefully they will be out on the street in the same amount of time we thought they were going to be. One of the biggest things also is we are asking our employees to continue to disinfect not only their vehicles, but their workspaces when they arrive to work and when they leave, to try and really reinforce trying to keep everything clean so we're keeping everybody safe.
So there's been a lot of interest in the public and in the media about, crime rates and crime trends. What can you share on that front?
So obviously that's another thing that we're messaging, and I know that I've put out some stats related to different types, but we are looking at that on a daily basis. So today I'd just like to talk about, so as far as traffic crashes are concerned, we have seen a decline in the number of traffic crashes, especially since school was closed. A lot less people out on the road. So we have seen a significant decline in traffic crashes. I think it's around 30% since the schools closed. For the last few weeks of March, our traffic citations in general are lower as far as like low-level speeding. But what I'd like to highlight is what we are seeing, which is a very dangerous trend and one I would like to see end very quickly, is we are seeing increased citations for those either going 21 miles to 30 miles over or even greater over the speed limit, which is something we don't see a lot of, but we have definitely seen an increase in that. And what I'd like to highlight to people is traffic laws are still in place and they will be enforced by the traffic officers. Driving that speed at any time, any day is just as dangerous, whether there's one person on the road or 100 people on the road. So I really want to stress to folks, please slow down and obey all of our traffic laws. We were able to report on some of our domestic violence calls for service. They are up about 15% from the 3-week period prior to the governor's order. So we are seeing an increase in that. When I say 15%, it's difficult because sometimes any increase is important to note, and we want to make sure that everybody who is experiencing domestic violence realizes that there's resources out there, and we will put those on our website, and we will continue to reinforce those so that they know that there's help available. But when you say 15%, that's a difference of about maybe 8 or 10 calls. But every single one of those is very important, and we want to highlight that we are seeing that increase. We want to be of assistance. So if you are experiencing any type of violence, please do not hesitate to call 911. We absolutely will respond.
And then can you touch on, I know at the press event a couple weeks ago, you mentioned that we had seen an increase in suicide calls or calls where there was a suicide threat indicated. Can you give us an update on that?
Yes. So I did report for the first couple of weeks after the order was given that we did see an uptick in those types of calls. What I'm happy to say now is that they have actually halved in the amount in the last couple of weeks. So what I'm hopeful for is that people are realizing that there's resources out there, that the information that we did put out, that the county put out, was helpful to people who are in need. We will continue to put that out. I would also like to stress again that to reach out to your friends, your family, your neighbors, just check in with folks, see how they're doing. This type of situation that we're in now impacts everybody very differently. And we need to realize that we need to be checking on each other, supporting each other. And I think that's where you're going to see like the decrease in the number of these types of calls. I'm hoping that people are getting the help that they need.
Any other calls that you want to highlight that might be of note?
Well, I would like to highlight that, while a lot of everything that we've been talking about is COVID related, however, the Portland Police Bureau is still responding to every type of call that we normally respond to. And over the last couple of weeks, they've made some fairly significant arrests. There was a homicide suspect arrest, a burglary suspect arrest, and many others that I could probably sit here and highlight over and over. But I want the public to realize that it's not just the COVID-19 that the Police Bureau is responding to. We are still your Portland Police Bureau, and we are responding to every call for service that we did prior to this.
So, Chief, you are in a very unique position to be able to see what's happening, within the Bureau and the community. Can you give us some examples of some of the things that you're seeing from your perspective?
Well, I think one of the things that's most impressive to me, or kind of like what I'm most proud of, is the fact that our officers and our professional staff have continued to come to work every day and provide excellent service. They're finding creative solutions to answering calls for service that we haven't seen before. Our traffic division has come up with a way to record some of the things that they would normally just read. So if they have to have a mask on, it's already pre-recorded. The officers are trying to be as creative as possible, but still giving that personal touch that they know that the community is really looking for. I know that we had Sunshine Division in here earlier, and I think that's something very positive to highlight. We are seeing, on average, about 7 more calls per day to the Bureau for food boxes. It's a critical thing that we need to be assisting with. And I think that highlights just how impactful this is across the board to everybody. So the officers are responding to that, and they're delivering these food boxes. And I think, as mentioned, it sounds like we're going to start delivering a few more here very soon. I've seen a lot of our community members step up. So we have some of our advisory council members who have offered to translate some of our messaging that we're trying to put out in the various languages that they speak, which has just been immensely helpful to get our message out to as many people as possible. A lot of businesses and just anybody who has been able to has donated supplies to first responders, which I think is amazing when people are realizing that we truly are the people who are out there every day, and they really do want to support us. I'm getting lots of messages of how can I help? How can I help? And I think probably one thing you've noticed, or when Sunshine Division was speaking, is people want to volunteer, and that's very hard to do right now. So we're trying to look for ways that people can help but still be safe. Every night there's I think it's at 7:00 where everybody comes out and cheers for first responders. I think that's amazing. I've been seeing more and more people doing that. And I think it just gives people, an opportunity to go outside, see your neighbors for a few minutes, but come together as a community and say, we do support those of us that are out there working. It's a very difficult time here in Portland, but it's an amazing time too, because we're seeing what everybody is capable of doing. We're seeing companies that are switching what they used to manufacture to help manufacture, what is needed right now. We're seeing communities reach out across the board. People are helping their neighbors. Kids are being taught by neighborhoods, and that kind of thing. So while this is very difficult, I think it's also highlighting the best of people.
Chief, we really appreciate your time today.
Absolutely.
I think that it's important for the public to have frequent updates about what we're doing, especially with a lot of the things behind the scene and, the latest situations. So thank you for taking the time. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Talking Beat. Do you have a question for us? You can call and leave us a message on our dedicated voicemail line at 971-339-8868. Or send us an email to talkingbeat@portlandoregon.gov. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends. More episodes can be found at our website, portlandoregon.gov/police/podcast.